Thank you, Professor Kolitha Sellaheva, for that introduction and for chairing this session, and all of you who have joined here in the hall and those who are on the Zoom platform. Thank you for joining. You know what the topic is. It is on Metta. In fact, it was going to be a panel discussion today, but since one of the panelists couldn't come, I took this up very happily because today happens to be my mother's birth anniversary and her name was Metta. So I thought it was, I took it up very happily. I didn't feel it a major task. Let us first begin with, as is customary, a short meditation session. And in keeping with the theme of today's talk, Metta meditation, let us meditate on Metta. The first thing I would like to say is that meditation also includes an aspect of development. It is actually a mental development. And Metta, today what we are going to do is to look at what cultivation of Metta, because the Metta is a practice. It's not the theoretical learning. Metta has to be practiced. Metta or loving kindness. Everyone is familiar with this topic, of course. But so in this next 5 or 6 minutes, let us look at how the Metta practice takes place. And what I would like to do is to recite 4 Pali phrases. I have to say that, please note that Metta, cultivation of Metta is not with words, not by reciting words, although that's what I'm going to do. But I'm justified in doing so because these are 4 foundational phrases, meaning they give convey the core content of what cultivation of Metta is. So I will recite the 4 stanzas. Each of them will come as a triad, meaning a set of 3, as it will be that may I be free from. The second one, think of a good friend of yours, and it will be may this person be free from. And the third, may all beings be free from, which is how Metta is radiated. Now, Metta is also radiated to your bitterest enemy even, but that I have not included in this first step that we are taking today. So what I will do is, I will translate to English the first set. But after that, I will translate only the first line, and I'm sure you will be able to get on without any further translations. But please, Metta is not, as I said, in words, but in our hearts and in our minds, the thought and the feeling and that emotion. So that is what one has to cultivate and transmit or radiate. All right, so let us start. And like in any other meditation, please sort of relax physically and mentally, get into a comfortable posture, and gently close your eyes. Aham avero homi, may I be free from hatred and anxiety. Sorry, hatred and animosity. I am sappuriso avero hotu, may this good person be freed from hatred and animosity. Sabbe satta avera hontu. May all beings be free from hatred and animosity. Aham abhyapajo homi. May I be free from anger and ill will. I am sappuriso avyapajo hotu. Sabbe satta abhyapaja hontu. May all beings be freed from anger and ill will. Aham anigo homi. May I be freed from suffering. I am sappuriso anigo hotu. Sabbe satta aniga hontu. May all beings be freed from suffering. Aham sukhi attanam pariharami. May I live happily. I am sappuriso sukhi attanam pariharati. Sabbe satta sukhi attanam pariharantu. May all beings live their lives happily. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Sabbe satta bhavantu sukhi tatta. May all beings be well and happy. And thank you for that participation. Let us then now get on to the discussion, talk and discussion. I am no scholar in Pali or scholar in Buddhism. So I think I'm sure I look forward to learning from you. And the idea, my plan is to have a closer look and reflect on the Karaniya Metta Sutta. Now, this is, you may wonder why, because we know this. You may think we know so much about this. This is a sutta that we are very familiar with, and that is absolutely true. I think if you think back, probably this was the first sutta that all of us ever learned, we learned to chant. It is the first one we ever learned. It's easy to chant, and sort of it's so very popular. And I think most people begin their day hearing this. Certainly, even some of the school gates are open to the early tricklers in, walking, hearing the strains of this Karaniya Metta Sutta. So, however, I would like to go through this verse by verse, and I think there is a few, it's very well worth because it conveys perhaps the most noblest quality that or virtue that anyone can ever have, of wishing your bitterest enemy the same goodwill that you wish for yourself, which is what metta is. So metta is a short word in Pali, but the English language doesn't have one word for it. And they have had to coin two words, and it's called loving kindness. One thing for sure is it's not love. That is for sure. Love has a self-interest, and metta is not love. Metta is also not compassion, which has pity and empathy. This is something much more. It has benevolence and friendliness and basically goodwill, universal goodwill. And metta has been, loving kindness is the commonest translation in the Buddhist translations. Bhikkhu Bodhi, as you know, an American very famous bhikkhu who ordained in Sri Lanka, he has called it sort of kind friendliness. And so there are slight, so friendliness comes in because the word metta is close to mitta, and it's mitra, it's Sanskrit mitta is also a very closely linked word. Anyway, it's a lot of goodwill. Now, I would like to, and we know, you would think that we know all about it. We know it's a Brahma Vihara, meaning, that's a term used, that it is a sort of a divine abode. There are 4 such divine abodes: Metta, Karuna, Mudita, which is altruistic joy, Karuna is compassion, and equanimity. So these are 4 mind states, thoughts that one has to develop, and are very fundamental and basic in the Buddhist teachings. So Metta is a Brahma Vihara. Metta, we also know, is a parami. Parami meaning a perfection. It's one of the perfections that a Buddha aspirant, a Bodhisattva, has to completely cultivate and be fully into metta, completely perfecting this virtue if they are to reach Buddhahood. So it's a Brahma Vihara, it's a parami, and it's a paritta. Now, paritta is a chanting, a sutta that when chanted brings protection. And metta gives protection. Let us look into that aspect, because the topic is today protection, practice, and the path. So let us first deal with protection. And if you look back at the background to how, when the Buddha gave this discourse, it's in the Kuddaka Nikaya. It's a relatively short sutta. A group of meditating monks reported to the Buddha that they were in a very isolated, quiet place under trees meditating, but there was a disturbance, a continuing disturbance from time to time, which was hindering their progress. So the Buddha, probably with his divine eye, seeing what it was, that there were terrestrial, not celestial, terrestrial, some beings, divine beings, on those trees, who themselves wanted quiet and peace and found the monks, their very presence, a bit irksome, perhaps, and were doing this. So he taught this. Sutta was told to them, go and practice this. And it is we will go into the details of the sutta, and it worked. There was a transformation, and they all reached Arahanthood. So that is a form of protection, I suppose. But anyway, there was a transformation. Now, I want to tell you that when you just say Metta Sutta, Sometimes there can be one or two other suttas which I find are listed under Metta Sutta. There is a sutta that predated. If we now look at, we are looking at protection. Was there, what would come to mind is all this belief in protection by chanting. Was it there in the time of the Buddha, or is this something new? And well, it was there in the time of the Buddha, because the very first parita, the very first protection that the Buddha ever taught was called Khanda Parita, Khanda Pirita, which was a protection from snakes. The monks, as you know, they were mostly forest dwelling. And there was one instance where a monk died of a snake bite. And the Buddha thereafter said, you have to, and the word metta comes repeatedly. The first time, it's a beautiful parita. If you haven't heard, I'm sure most of you have. I can still remember the first day I heard it many long years ago. I was just enthralled by it. It was so sort of mellifluous, so nice. And the word metta comes repeatedly. Now, in the first verse, there are 4 strange words. It starts very strangely. Virupakke me mettang mettang erapate me jabyam putte me mettang mettang kanha gotama kecha. You wonder what those words are. Apparently, they are names of 4 groups of snakes. And it's translated as 4 royal tribes. I like to think that royal meant powerful, and powerful meant poisonous, because only certain classes of snakes, all snakes are not poisonous. Even in this country, we have only about 4, 6 maybe classes, of which only 4 are very commonly found. So this is how that starts. But then it goes on as apadakehi me mettang, mettang dipadakehi me. Apada means no feet, footless. So give metta to the footless. Apadakehi me mettam, mettam dipadakehi me to those bipeds. Dipada. Chatuppadehi means 4. Chatuppadehi me mettam to the quadrupeds. And then the creatures that have a lot of mettam, bahuppadehi me. So it's all mettam, mettam. Even more than in the Karaniya Metta Sutta, you hear the word mettam there. And then it is sabbe satta, all creatures. Sabbe pana, all breathers. Pana, anapana, so breathing, all creatures that are breathing. Sabbe, so it extends beyond snakes also, maybe to scorpions or whatever. But that's how it is. So just to tell you that there was protection by chanting in the Theravada tradition also, not maybe as much as in the Mahayana or Vajrayana, but there are. And we all know that, say, even for childbirth, there's an Angulimala Pirita, the Ratana Sutta, which was again very well known and heard on the, in the morning Pirit that is chanted. That's one of them, because it was at a time of famine and pestilence and problems from the unseen. Again, at that time, what was considered that it was chanted by the Buddha. So protection is there. There are so many other suttas. Venerable Piyadasi has a book of protection, it's called. Compile them together. I think the number is 20. But what is interesting then is how to today's, people think and want to know answers. How does chanting protect? And this Venerable Piyadasi, who put that book together, uses the word of asseveration. It's a very strange word, A-S-S-E-R, asseveration. It's a verb. And he says it is through asseveration where your mind is accepting what is being told, and the whole thing hinges on the power of the mind. Mind is very powerful. Today we know that psychologists would also stand by this statement that mind has a effect over matter. if there are problems with the mind, if there is any mental health issues or anything, one could be also having physical effects of it. So, and we know that even to plants, one is expected to speak, even is beyond just the human mind or creatures. So that's how it goes. And asseveration, if you look at the dictionary, says emphatic declaration. And what Venerable Piyadasi says is that there is this strong, powerful statement. Based on the truth of this statement, may you be protected. And this is why these suttas all end with etena satya vajjena. By the truth of these words, e satya vachaning, may you be protected. So, so much for that section of it. And Metta Sutta falls into that category of protection. That is how Metta gives protection. And it is known that mostly for mental health, we have another sutta, a very short sutta I would like to finish with before we come, because it will help us with our understanding of the Metta Sutta, called Mettanisamsa Sutta. Anisamsa means benefits. And there are Eka Dasani Sansa, meaning 11, 1 and 10. Eka Dasani Sansa, 11 benefits. If you look at those, the first is Sukhang Supati, you fall asleep easily, no insomnia. Sukhang Supati, Sukhang Patipujjati, you awake easily, happily, not getting off the wrong side of the bed, I suppose. And na papakang supinang passati, supinang is dreams, na papa, no bad dreams. Then it's mansanam piyohoti, you are liked by people around you. And amanusanam piyohoti, even those who are not maybe animals or any unseen creatures. And devata rakkantu. So that's a direct one saying that the devas will protect you. And there's another statement, nas agniva sattangva visangva, means you have protected from fire, agni, visang, toxins, and also, I think, poisonous animals or whatever from animals. We don't thankfully hear. There are lots of bhikkhus even today, young bhikkhus I know who have been doing, I know of people who are doing very high income jobs. They're only in their 30s and so maybe. They leave and they are forest dwellers, but they don't even wait in one place saying they get attached to that place. But thankfully, we don't hear of any animals, leopards, or any snake bites and killing them. I feel statistically we don't hear that, thankfully. So there is protection, I think. Anyway, that's Mettanisamsa. Mettanisamsa goes on to, let us finish since we started on that, about the samadhi being your mind settling to samadhi, meaning to a concentrated mind, you can still your mind at meditation easily if you have metta in your heart. Tuvatang chittang samadhyati, meaning samadhi has 3 levels. You can pass through those 3 levels very quickly and get to deep samadhi if you have metta. And also, Mukhavanno Vipasidati is your face there. Looks good, And amazingly, scientifically, the telomere, which is the ends of chromosomes, they get blunted with age. But in Metta, it's in Metta meditation practitioners that the research found that their chromosomes can be karyotyped. There's a way of looking at it. You find that even with age, they are with age-matched controls. The Metta practitioners have longer, meaning they have not grown that, they have been young. It looks like on their chromosomes, and they're looking young. So it's an anti-age cream, as it were, anti-age face cream. So Metta has its benefits. So most of it comes through the mental relaxations and things. And so altogether there are 11, but the final ones are that you will, at death, you're peaceful, And in case you haven't reached Arahantstu, now that's important to remember as we come to the end of this sutta. Remember that in the Mettanisamsa, it also ends saying, if you haven't finished your, reached Arahantstu, you will be entitled to you will be going to a Brahma world, which are some of the higher realms in the celestial realms. But then that is not our goal. Nibbana is our goal. But so there is a little bit saying, you, in case you haven't, you will go there. So there is this haven't possibility there in Metta. Just note that as we go along. Now let us do, the next thing was the practice. Let us come to this sutta, knowing its benefits, knowing its protection. In today's thing, we know that psychiatrists have found that in a lot of post-traumatic stress is reduced. Chronic pain can be reduced with metta. Also, that's what the science shows, scientific studies show. And also perhaps depression will be reduced because metta ends with being happy and you're uplifted. Anyhow, now let us come to the sutta itself. Let us look at the opening statement. An opening statement of any sutta, any lecture today, we are told, give the objective of what you are going to speak before you start. So today we thought we look at the protection, the practice and the path of what is taught in the Metta, Karaniya Metta Sutta. The first word is Karaniyam Atta Kusalena. Karaniyam itself is, what does that mean? Do. What should be done? So it is not a passive thing to just study and put by. It is an action. Action is needed. Metta is action. Karaniyam Atta Kusalena. What is it that a skilled person would do for his benefit? Atta is Kusalena is a skill. Kusala is a skill and achievement. What is it that they will achieve? Karaniyam Atta Kusalena Yantam Santam Padam. Padam is to reach to a state of Santa, of serenity, of peace. Abhisamecha means it's not a small kind of peace, it's a very great peace. So now it's left to us to decide, I don't know, it hasn't been said Nibbana, but if it is, as it is translated as what it means is what is there to be done by the skilled or clever person to reach that high state of thing. It could be even Nibbana. It just could be. It's not clear. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't like to say which, but you could reflect on that. What could it mean? Now, one thing about it is that throughout this sutta, you find that there are skills and skill and virtue needed. Right? That is what we will see. It begins with sakko. Sakko is the first word after that. Karaniya Matta Kusalena, Yantam Santam Padam, Abhisamecha, sakko. Sakko is translated as can be done. First thing, you have to be motivated and realize you're capable of doing a thing. Sakko is like hakio, you can do it. So, sounds to me like hakio, I don't know. But anyway, you're capable. That's the first thing. The next is ujucha sujucha, means direct and very direct, or straight and very honestly. The direct, you work on this really honestly. Now, at this point, I just like to sidestep, since we are doing now the practice, let us remember in the Buddhist teaching, Buddha wants, as what we are expected to have, are 5 faculties. We have to have 5 pancha indriya. These indriyas are not eyes and ears and things like that, that is expected to learn and succeed in mastering the teachings of the Buddha, following the teachings of the Buddha. You have to have Shraddha. Shraddha is confidence. To me, it looks as if he starts with saying you start with having confidence when you say have sakko. because Sako is confidence. It's saying, I'm confident, I'm capable of this. And next is Ujucha, Sujucha, direct, very direct, means like telling somebody do it and do it really well. It needs effort. So the second is Virya. So it actually begins with Shraddha and Virya. This is why I thought when you reflect on this, there is so much more, such a beautifully crafted, like all suttas perhaps, but when I look at this, Sako, Ujucha, Sujucha, so we have, you have to, what the virtue you have is Shraddha and Virya. Then we have the next words are Sako, Ujucha, Sujucha, Suvacho, Suvacho. Suvacho is translated as well-spoken. Now, how the Buddha spoke, not the content of what he spoke, how the Buddha spoke, there are a lot of analyzed and described in looking at the entire Tripitaka, I suppose. And in that list, in way, there are about 20 words given to the descriptions of what his way of speaking. But the first is all invariably, I have seen that at the top of the list often, Suvacho. Suvacho means not just well-spoken. You know, you and I can speak well and not really have that intention in the heart of wishing that person well. Even say a good morning can be really very hollow. We keep saying morning, morning, doesn't mean we are wishing that person. So, or even if I totally disagree with what that person was doing, I might say, well, I wish you well, but I don't really wish him well. I know he's not going to do it. So that's not Suvacho. Suvacho is where you really wish that, so all your words have to be with a good intention. When you speak to somebody, you are saying something, you are directing, explaining, or whatever, it's with a good intention. So that's where that is Suvacho. Now you would see that if you have to do that all the time, you have to have mindfulness. Otherwise, your words are not good. So now we came to Shraddha, Virya, Sati. That's mindfulness. Is the third of the faculties. And the rest of the words that we are going to, what are the skills that are being taught, are all hinges on needing mindfulness practice. So it just shows that Metta has a lot, as you develop Metta, you're also developing your mindfulness as the way, if you look at it, the way I think we can, the way I see it. I mean, without mindfulness, you won't succeed. So it's Suvato, that's a mudu, meaning always gentle, which also means not stubborn, flexible. You are willing to listen. And anatamani means you have to be very modest and humble. So these are the first verse, that is what it says. Then we come to the second verse, which is Santusta Kocha Subharocha. I won't go through the Pali, which you know, but it is to be content with little, so be content, easily supported. Your needs are not, you're not needing very hi-fi things. You are easy to be supported, you maintain, and your demands are few. And you're not too upper kichocha means your activities, the alpa kriya, upper kichocha, it's not a lot of work. You don't you don't undertake too much. You will have not overdo. You're not too busy. And you're super, and you are also, then we come to the lightly engaged, being lightly engaged. Salla Ukavutti means you're sahel, you're lightly, you live lightly, simply. So these are now the skills. All of these have a component of mindfulness. So we had seen that three of the faculties very much they are being. And now we come to the third verse, which is a beautiful line, which is Nachakuddam samachare kimchiyena vinyu pare upavadeyum, which is you will not, no, I will not do the slightest wrong that a wise person, a wise person would disapprove. Now, I cannot, personally, I was thinking that I can't think of any other sentence, any other statement that could be, put it more beautifully, to say be mindful all the time. We know one word is appamada, or be vigilant all the time. But here we are told a wise person. The Buddha doesn't say who the wise person is. He leaves it open. He gives it the freedom. You're not told listen to so-and-so, or listen to me, or listen to the scriptures, or listen to the precepts. But what you think a wise person would disapprove, do not do. Do not say. Do not think. So that is, it covers mindfulness fully. You are having to live mindfully in that exercise. So I think up to that, now we have come to that block of skills and virtues that you as a result develop. It's all about mindfulness, the way I see it. So Shraddha, Virya, Sati has come. And now we come to the Samadhi bit, which is now concentrating on actually spreading the Metta and working on Metta itself. These were the attributes that were needed if Metta is to be successful. And then he's not on that itself. There's Sukhi Nova, Kemino Hontu, means you wish everyone happiness, Sukhi. And Kemino is even a great security, and a Kema is secure and safety. And in a desert, oasis is also called a Kshema Bhumya in Sinhalese. That is, you come to a place of safety and finally some sort of comfort. So, and Nibbana is also called Kema. So Kema is another big word there. And Sukhi Nova, Kemino, you are expected. Now looking at the fourth, it is whatever ye kechipana bhutati is wherever these living beings are, without exception, you have to do this. And then he starts describing tasavata brava, you mean weak and the strong. The tasavata brava, then the strong, long and the long, the middle length, the big, and so forth. The Ligavaye Mahantava is the long, and you cannot sort of, though you shouldn't really learn, you have to learn Pali for Pali's sake, not through, but it's so close to Sinhala. You can see Ligavaye Mahantava is large, and the Anupastula is very tiny. Anu is like tiny, molecule tiny, and Stula is obese, so very gross. So whatever the size. But here when we look back, sit back and look, the Buddha is now specifying groups. And saying, of course, saying to all, but you are grouping and looking at it at that point. So, and then Dittavaya, the next verse is what you see, those who can be seen and unseen, those who are dure, avidure, who are far away and close by, those who are born and yet to be born, right? Bhutava Sambhavesiva, yet to be born, the Sambhavesi. So now to all these are again actually groups. And then there comes like what we did in our meditation, the next one, let one person to another not have hatred, not have anger and ill will, and not wish them ill. So we went through those Pali lines in our meditation. So that's all included in one verse. Then we come to, these are only 10 verses. Seventh verse is that like a mother who would look after her only child, Mata Yataniyam Puttam. Puttam here is not son, but children. Sanskrit Putra is, or Putta is children, girls and boys both, sons and daughters both. So there you are, that is, so that is a metaphorically that is a simile. And although Tanisa Ro has also said that it could mean look after your metta practice like how a mother would look after, maybe be so that caring and careful with it. But that's the usual interpretation of this is how to spread metta and wish another good will loving kindness as you would do your child. Then we come to mettancha sabba lokasmi. So the sabba loka. Now we are going not specified. Then the Buddha gets into the next phase of unspecified people, to everyone. Now you break the barriers. You break the barrier of known or unknown, and known, unknown, neutral, and the adverse or enemies. So those are the four groups, but you then break through that and to everyone. And that's the only line that is, Buddha doesn't normally repeat himself. Exactly when he repeats, there's a slight difference. But here there's this Mettanta Sabba Lokasmin comes twice in the sutta. So it just shows that and so forth. And then we come to, I'm not saying that mindfulness and metta are the same, but there's so much of mindfulness needed in metta. Because then tittam charam nisinnova sayanova is whether you're standing, sitting, lying, all four postures. Same thing is told in the Satipatthana in slightly different words. Gatte tite nisinne sute is standing, gatte is walking, tite is standing, and nisinne sitting, and sute. So the same four postures are given even there. So there you are learning mindfulness, these things, or metta, all four postures are it. Now we come to the most interesting or difficult to understand or worthy of discussion, the last verse, because that says, what does that say? Dittincha anpagamma silava dasanena sampanno. Dittincha means the views. But it is to say, to get rid of wrong views. And silava means you are virtuous. If you have got rid of service and if you are virtuous, silava. Dasanena means you are, dasanena sampanno is you are endowed with insight. So if you have got this also, in addition to now having been able to spread metta like that, you will nahijatu gabbaseyam punare titi. You will not return to a mother's womb. Now, this is where I want to say that this last verse also shows, and there is the metta supports the practice. Vipassana is direct. Vipassana is direct to Nibbana. Whereas metta supports, and then at the end of the day, wisdom. The Buddhist final Nibbana is you need wisdom. So we have wisdom. Buddhist wisdom has two components. Buddhist wisdom is not just knowledge. Buddhist wisdom is knowledge and compassion. When I say compassion, that has charity, that has benevolence, that has compassion, and that has loving kindness. All that, the two pillars on which the Buddha's characteristic were wisdom and compassion. And that is what one has to aspire to. So otherwise, as we have heard, wasn't it Valpola Rahula who said, otherwise you will be, if you have one without the other, you might be a hard-hearted intellectual or a good-hearted fool. So you have to have both. Buddhist wisdom means both. And Buddhist wisdom is a penetrative wisdom, not the learn from somebody. You listen to somebody and learn is anubodha, accordingly, knowledge accordingly. But it's not knowledge accordingly, it's penetrative knowledge where your mind has, somehow you have seen the truth of things as they are. You have experienced it. That is wisdom, Buddhist wisdom. So here it is said that, especially Vipassana monks I've spoken to say, no, metta alone won't take you there, because metta lacks the anatta sanya, the non-self perception. Because you are thinking of different categories, true enough. But on the other hand, there is another school of thought. I didn't also know how to actually say it here to you. I can't say anything that is wrong, so I'm just leaving it open. But I do know that due to that, therefore, metta is, as you know, vipassana, the Buddha says, ekayano maggo. That doesn't mean it's the only path. It's not ekang maggo. Ekayano means it's a unidirectional thing. This is direct, and this has to lead there, nowhere else. Whereas metta can lead, as you can see, to the Brahma worlds. So, but wisdom, if you progress on the path, if you look at this, all 8 things are there in the path. In fact, we had Sila first, Samadhi. If you relook now, time doesn't. We were spoken with the Suvato, Tafsa, Mudu, and those were all Sila, how to learn about your speech, about your actions. So we had, the effort. All the 8 factors are also there in this. Having said that, metta is like the lotus, as the usual simile. You grow in the mud and you had all the defilements, and then it grows right up, and then the bud will open only when the sun kisses it. So the wisdom is what will make it open. Till then, it was this journey up with sila and so forth. So likewise, metta will help to bring it very close, and then but in the meantime, if there was dittincha anupagama silava dasanena, insight, you've had the insight and the virtue sila in place. Having said that, I was also thinking, I happened to hear just less than 48 hours ago, one day at nearly midnight, a certain a monk whom I think is very great, Henepola Gunaratna Mahatero, 98 years in Western Virginia. He was talking the metta can you get to Nibbana through metta? And he gave this stanza, which it didn't take me long after that, the next day, to find that it is a Dhamma Dhammapada, number 368, I think it was. Definitely Dhammapada in the Bhikkhu Vagga. And that said, Metta Vihariyo Bhikkhu, meaning the Bhikkhu who dwells in Metta, Pasanno Buddha Sasane, and he delights in the Buddha's dispensation. So obviously, the monk who was living, he's referring to a monk who Buddha referred to a monk or monks who are dwelling in Metta, and also knowing the rest of the dispensation, I think. And then says, Adigache Padang Santang. Adigache is achieving. We would like to say in Buddhist language, realization of Padang, the state of saying Santa. That is what you started with. Karaniya Mattakusari Antam Santam Padam. That's what you want to get to. So Padam Santam. We have come to that. This is now a poetic, Dhammapada is in poetry, so the words are a little bit not exactly like in a sentence. So Adigache Padam Santam. And the last line is Sankaru Pasamang Sukham. Sankaras, which are our formations, Vachi Sankara or Kaya Sankara or Mano Sankara, what we are always, that is what you have to stop doing, the Sankara. Sankara, Sankara Upasamang means Sankara Upasamang. You have stopped the Sankara, which means it's liberated. So he was saying that through Metta, one can come to. So I would note whether exactly to say whether Metta, so Metta only gets you to Brahma Loka, because there is, when I inquired, one Vipassana, very, very well-versed monk said, oh, that is, you can get up to Anagami because you won't come back. It's a no-returner to the mother's womb, right? Even if you have got that's as high as you go. So maybe it gets up to so very close. But if you have also had the other Vipassana mingled with it, it is. So that is it. With that, I would like to open the floor and hand over the mic to Professor Kolita Selahera.
Thank you, Professor Manouri, for that beautiful description of a very common sutta, which we've known to listen to it so many times, chanted it hundreds of times. But today you took us through a very deep and a very clear analysis of the content of the sutta. And that's what is needed, to see very deep as to exactly what is meant by these different words and how it can impact progress in the path. And listening to what you mentioned, I think starting from just the metta, how it can lead to mindfulness. And then everywhere, I think you mentioned mindfulness involved in the practice of this Metta Sutta. And then we also know that mindfulness is central to our path of liberation. So when you put these two together, it's not difficult to understand how, if you practice what is preached in the Metta Sutta, that will take you straight, you will end up in Nibbana, as explicitly worded in the last stanza I mentioned, last words of that. Naijatu Gabbaseyam Punaretiti. So no more birth in a womb. So that's the end. So I think it's a very good thing to think about, contemplate. So I think we'll open the floor for discussion. We have comments and any questions.
I would just like to add that I didn't emphasize on the samadhi part of it, which is also a very important part, because meaning that the meditation and the radiation of metta, we did say that it is boundless. I just want to mention that word appa. The Buddha says that it is appamano, meaning it's immeasurable. So that is why it's an immeasurable. There are 4 immeasurables, the 4 Brahma Viharas, the 4 divine abodes are also called the 4 immeasurables. And the mind is so infinite, and as you go along, if you go on practicing that to that extent, the metta, that is how you get into that infinite state. So that section, so sila, mindfulness, not only mindfulness, there is a lot of samadhi involved in this sutta. Appamana. Thank you.
Thank you. They will open the forum to the Zoom audience first. Anyone who wants to make a comment or ask a question, you can unmute, raise your hand, and direct your question or comment, please. Yeah, okay. There's a comment coming from Samantha Jayatilaka. Thank you, Dr. Manouri, for this wonderful, meaningful talk. It's a deeper meaning and a beautiful sutta to truly understand. Yeah. Any questions? Okay, yeah, Dr. Yes. I'll get to that.
Come. Take the mic. The Zoom. Zoom can't hear otherwise.
Yeah.
Make it.
Yes. Thank you, Professor Manouri. Very supported by Professor Kolita, and very excellent talk, clear talk on an important sutta. Something I think I just want to see. I think we clarified that on particular stance was on the whether you are standing or lying down. Always be except when you are sleeping, I think, or except when you are lying down.
Lying down also.
Yeah, that's that the most important thing is to be mindful. So the Amravati tradition, like Adanta and Adan Suveda and all of these, one of the Buddha's supreme most teaching is this, to be mindful at all times except when you are sleeping. Yeah, they
Not
always
sleeping,
is
but
it
lying down.
lying down.
Lying down
Except-
you can.
Yeah, yeah. It's all they,
Lying down you
Lying
can,
down.
yeah, except
Not when sleep.
not when
not
sleep.
sleeping. So they always stress that this particular stanza, the Metta Sutta, is one of Buddha's supreme teaching. I think Reverend Narada also has studied the word that Budunge Itaritaram Dharme Tamai me Satya just to add that. And secondly, just to clarify, is this one of the few sutta, is this one of the few suttas Buddha himself preached? All the words
Yeah.
are they getting,
Yeah.
yeah. That's also another
And the
point.
Dhammapada are his words. So even
Okay.
the Dhammapada is.
So, yes. Thank you very much, just addition. Yeah, thank you
Thank
very much. Rafi.
Thank you for those comments. Yeah. Can you come up please for this?
Thanks a lot for the lovely explanation. And actually, practicing metta, I feel that, as you said, it doesn't come from words only. It comes from within you, all, from the bottom of your heart. And when you see somebody, when you practice it properly, when you see somebody, you feel that you have metta towards that person. And also, I would like to mention at this time, your mother, Metta, I know her personally, she's my aunt, and that name suits her very well. So even now when I seated, I thought that it was the best name. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anything else? What I want to say? Can I ask a question, Manu? What really this question of protection? Now, most of the time people chant this spirit and they say some protection will come from the way it is chanted. Now, is that the reality? Can anyone get protected by chanting or listening to the chanting of the spirit? Or is it the true practice or what is embodied in the sutta that gives you the protection? Because when scientifically they say the way it is chanted, sometimes it can give rise to certain changes in the arrangement of molecules and atoms. They've done some experiments, I think in Japan or somewhere, I can't remember exactly where. When good words are chanted, the water, it changed, the crystallization changed, the alignment changed. And that sort of water, when it was used on plants, grew better than the water that was exposed to bad words. So there's some scientific basis to the changes that can take place in the world outside on the way things are in chanted. So I suppose some protection must be coming the way it is chanted also. But for me personally, even more important, I think, is to understand what is meant by these words and you practice it. Say, for example, somebody is very kind, not doing any harm to somebody else. It's very unlikely that person will harm you. So protection comes that way by the mere way in which you practice. So there are two aspects to this. I wonder whether you would like to clarify that a little bit more, please.
Thank you very much for that question. How metta protects? We can keep talking using words, but I'll give a few anecdotes. First of all, if any of you want, you can Google Ajahn Shah, sorry, Ajahn Brahm, and how does chanting work? And there's another story of his and a snake. There is another beautiful story, which I will put the link to all of you tonight. You can find it also on our YouTube. You go to YouTube, go to Servants of the Buddha, put Aya Karumika. She's a fully ordained nun living in Santi Forest Monastery. I won't say it because I can't say it as beautifully as she did. Walking in that's a huge forest that they are in. She goes for a walk, and I don't want to spoil the story for you because she says it so beautifully. he comes across a black mamba, the most poisonous of snakes, and what happens, and how this actually, she happens to meet another nun who was coming in another direction, and they join up and they walk. And but a long story short, the other nun was in front, and she saw that nun stops, so this one also stops. Then she sees the mamba, and that nun in front is the one who is very wise. She puts the hand back and Karunika holds Karunika's hand. And then Karunika is thinking, shall I run away or whatever? She tells the whole story and squeezes her hand. So she knows she shouldn't run. And then she hears in a very sweet voice saying, you are out today. We are also out for a walk, and whatever she said. And this animal had by that time raised his head, and the eyes were, she says, you can still remember the eye-to-eye contact, and how that huge snake also turns down and slithers away. That's one story. Ajahn Brahms is another true story. So leaving all those stories aside, so there are stories. I can put that link to you, which is easier for you than searching it, but you could search for it. And in 2023, Aya Karunika spoke to us. The topic was the simple and happy path to Nibbana. So it is as a path to Nibbana. Without a doubt, Metta is a path to Nibbana, whether it's on the path anyway. Now, for most, that is anecdotal, but being Kolita, he wants the science. So the asseveration, in what this word asseveration is used for how this works, the power of the mind on that chanting, apparently the listener should be understanding and also should be, having adequate confidence in that teaching. So of course we know that even witchcraft can work on various things, psychosomatic diseases. So the power of the mind is where this is, but the chanting of this, and as I said, that Kandapirita, even the 4 groups of snakes, which the Buddha uttered, shows the zoological understanding on it. But it's amazing. But listen to those 2 snake stories, please. They're both on the YouTube, on the internet.